The only reason why anybody wants to hurt anybody else is because they're caught in an illusion. They're caught in the illusion of the mind. They're caught in the illusion of division and separation. If you're not caught in the illusion of division and separation, it doesn't even occur to you to want to do anything to anybody. The only thing you want to do is explode in ecstasy and joy. And when you explode in ecstasy and joy, what are you doing? You're doing whatever the fuck comes naturally for a human being to do. And you have to discover what that is. What is actually natural for the human being to do is what is absolutely natural for God to do, because the human being and God are one. And so, what happens when you completely surrender the image of division that you've inherited from the culture, which then returns you to your natural, completely self accepting state? You dance, you sing, you laugh, you make love. I mean, you do everything that a human being would do. You want to connect truly and deeply with people around you. And you see that that can only happen if everybody involved is doing it also from that same place of love. Because when that love is here, then there's no fear of looking right or looking wrong or looking ugly or looking pretty or anything. There's no fear of death or fear of hurt or fear of suffering. And so there are no walls and barricades that are built to try to keep you safe from suffering, because you can't be kept safe from suffering. If you build walls to stay safe from suffering, you only find yourself suffering interminably inside of those walls you've built. And so when you're free, you take to the skies, you rise like a dragon, and you don't ever let anybody clip your wings. The body will die soon enough, but as long as the body is here, it is meant as a vehicle to explore time and space, which is thought. And so everything is a sandcastle. Everything is a structure that is made out of dust, out of stardust. And that dust, in any form, whatever form the dust takes, it has to dissolve back into just formless dust, into formlessness, into just pure light. And so when you're aware of all this, what 99.999% of people are doing, it doesn't even occur to you to do because it's just dumb. Most people are wasting their lives doing petty, stupid shit. And that's not talking about, I'm not trying to quantify or qualify any particular kind of activity. The most well spent life could be one sitting here doing absolutely nothing. So I'm not talking about anybody's external image or vision or understanding of what an activity is or isn't worth based on money or productivity or whatever. That's ridiculously stupid. In fact, I'm talking about that whole structure of thinking, which believes that some kind of absolute value of life can be determined through some kind of economic or monetary measure. And that's just ridiculous. That's called idol worship. That's called worshiping of time and space and thought. That's worshiping of the creation. That's the worship of thought. That's the worship of ego, of the mind, which is ridiculous. Has no merit. There's no relevance to that whatsoever. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't do anything for anybody to stay stuck in that mode. So when you're actually here in self, you are literally only concerned with life. Life, 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 and life, because life is all there is. And you want to run around laughing and screaming and hugging and dancing and engaging with absolutely everything you can in all the best ways. Unfortunately, you end up coming into this realization. You see that the realization is a part of the whole thing anyway, but you may come up against a lot of people who are kind of stuck in this place. But the reality is that when you're here in this energy, in this awareness, the world responds to you differently. Most who are ready and able and willing to feel this and come into it, they'll meet you with a sense of awe and wonder and love and joy and a kind of reverence. And people who are resisting it, they will either kind of just stand there stunned because they don't know what to do, or else they'll, you can kind of see some anger or some jealousy or whatever come out in them. But the truth is that when you're really sufficiently anchored in this, you tend to come upon that a little bit less, because those people are just not interested. They're too caught up in their own dramas to even be interested in anything outside of that field of drama. And so if somebody who's caught in that field of drama clearly sees that you're not manipulatable, that you're not hookable, that you aren't a factor in their predetermined notion of what it means to get what they think they want, if they don't see you as an object of desire or something that can get them something that they want, they won't even pay attention to you. There's an old quote that goes, when a thief sees a saint, he only sees his pockets, right? And so if you look like you have nothing to offer somebody who's looking for something very specific because they're lost in their ignorance, they're not interested in you unless they see you as being in their way, or if they see you effortlessly attracting to you or getting or being in the space of that which they think they want, then they'll get jealous and angry and bitter, and they'll come to you and they'll want to know your secrets. Why do you have so many? If somebody's fetish or fascination is with beautiful people, for example, and someone sees that you have a lot of, beautiful or nice looking or very aesthetic or very accomplished or very artistic, very so-called individual people around you, and they want that. Well, why do they want that? Because they want to possess people as objects. But the only reason why true, beautiful, bright souls come around you is because you are also a true, beautiful, bright soul, and therefore you're not trying to possess anybody as an object. You're here in love. And when you're here in love, all the beings that are also here in love will come around you because love attracts love. Love seeks love. Love seeks itself. Just as hatred, anger, and violence also seeks itself. But it also seeks to drag in beings that it wants to abuse and keep on a leash and on a chain. And no true free being wants to be on anybody else's leash or chain. And anybody who does not want to be on anybody's chain and leash can feel when someone is trying to come and put a leash on them. And they'll move away. Or they'll let you think you can put a leash on them, and they'll let you do it, but then they'll just disappear out of the leash. Because when you're free, nothing can bind you. You can even sit here and let someone tie you up, and you'll just walk right through the binds, because you can't actually be bound. And so anyone who thinks that they actually want to take and bind and grab and keep and hold somebody hostage to make them, you must belong to me, anybody who's in that mode is ignorant, stupid, dumb, and will never be satisfied, will never get what they want. In fact, what they want is to suffer. And so you have to see that those people, they want to suffer. Let them suffer. They'll suffer whether they're sitting next to you, or they'll suffer whether they're on their own crying about how they're on their own. It doesn't matter. If somebody wants to suffer, let them. You can't stop anybody from suffering who wants to suffer. So when someone's finally done suffering, it means they drop the me and the mine. They drop the belief that they are the possessors or the owners or the controllers of anything or anybody. You're not. It is your job to love. It is your job to take care. It is your job to ensure the freedom and the safety of all who come near you. That means it's your job to be in total sovereignty and to allow all beings to be in total sovereignty. And you can't be in sovereignty unless you allow all beings to be in sovereignty. And you can't be in sovereignty unless you know firsthand the absolute inviolable sovereignty of God, of the source of creation, which is inseparable from you and what you are. So God's sovereignty is your sovereignty, is the sovereignty of all beings. And you either know this or you don't. And if you know it, it's because you've surrendered to yourself and you continue to live in self-surrender every moment, every moment, every moment. And the beings that are suffering and trying to take and grab and manipulate and abuse and bind and exploit, those are the beings that hate themselves because they hate God, because they hate life, because they hate everything. They hate. They're ignorant. That's ignorance. Jealousy, envy, that's all ignorance. And so when you're simply here in truth and beauty and love, truth and beauty and love come to sit on your lap without even you having to ask. It's like being a rose that opens up in the midst of high spring or summer. And it has such a delicious scent that all the honeybees come to gather around. Why wouldn't they? You're a rose that smells amazing. Of course all the beautiful honeybees are going to come sit on your lap. That's what happens. Silly. And you allow the bees to be free. The flower doesn't then close around the bee and goes, you're mine. Then the flower dies and so does the bee. The flower stays open and it lets all the bees come and drink, and then the bees carry on and they go about their business. And if you're a flower that is open and bright and giving of that nectar to all who come near, then all the big, beautiful honeybees will come as often as they can or want to, because that's just the nature of the flower and the bee. So there's no power and control dynamic there. But if somebody looks at the bees, the big, beautiful honeybees, as being some object it wants to possess because it sees it as a measure of its own personal worth or status or whatever, then that's just decay. That's rot. That's not love. That's not anything that anybody wants to be around. And so the only way that you can be here as your natural self is to be here as your natural self. And that means you have to be so in love with your own presence, with your own being, and your own being is love anyway. And to simply be here basking in the joy of your own being means that you're completely and utterly fulfilled here in the silence of your own self. And therefore, if there is anybody or anything around you or not, it doesn't matter, because here you are, and I am that. There's nothing without me. If I disappear, so does everything else. And then there's nothing to be enjoyed and nothing to be disenjoyed. The basis of all likes and dislikes is consciousness, is your own true self. And so rather than getting upset or excited about what you like or what you don't like, you simply rest in the substratum. You rest in the basis of that, which is your own self. Without yourself, without consciousness, there's no likes or dislikes. There's no pain or pleasure. There's no wealth or poverty. There's no having or losing. That all sits on top of consciousness. And if you try to rest or find refuge in those things that come and go, you will be buffeted around and in constant suffering and turmoil. But if you understand that your true refuge is in your own eternal self, which is unmoving, unchanging, it doesn't come and go, then you discover the eternal and true equanimity of your own being. And then whether anyone or anything comes or goes, it doesn't matter. And naturally, all the beautiful honeybees will come, because they're here to drink the nectar of their own self, because each of those honeybees is also a rose in their own right. Every bee is a rose. Every rose is a bee, you see? And every rose has to be, and every bee must be, and every bee must go to the rose. And when the bee drinks the nectar of the rose, then it may discover that itself is actually a rose, being. And so we're all roses, and both the rose and the bee is God. And that is the nectar. And in that drinking of the nectar, you discover that you are the nectar, that the nectar of immortality, the nectar of consciousness, bliss, ecstasy, intelligence, love, peace, perfection, that is you. You are the nectar, and you are the dispenser of the nectar, and you are the drinker of the nectar. And then you just want to love, you want to support, you want to help. And I don't mean help in a contrived way. I mean, you stand here as an eternal support for all beings that come near, needing to remember themselves, to find sanctuary. And sanctuary means you're free to come and you're free to go. There are no holds barred. There are no hostages. There's no secret ropes or tethers or cords on anything. Sanctuary, freedom, means you're free to come and you're free to go. You're free to land and drink the nectar, and then you're free to leave. You're free to come to the spring, to the well, to the fountain of immortality, and drink of the waters, and you're free to go. You're not being bound or held here. That's the eternal fountain. It's been called the Fountain of Youth, or Atlantis, or El Dorado. Call it whatever you want to call it. The City of Gold, Shangri-La, Heaven, Swarga, or beyond Swarga, Vaikunta, the eternal peace, the boat of eternal peace, right? Vishnu. You know, that which is not. I mean, you can use whatever words, the true self or the no self, depending upon whether you want to use Hindu or Buddhist language, which really is the same language, comes from the same language, so the same source. So you can play with it however you would like. They call it the great void, the great nothing, the great everything, the great source, the great mystery, the great spirit, God, goddess, Shiva, Shakti, Krishna, Christ. I mean, call it whatever the hell you're going to call it. It's that. And you are that. And then all these words are just part of play. And so you can say anything or say nothing. And blessedly, when these words come pouring out of illumination, then the words blessedly, fortunately, by a power of grace, make sense. They're clear. They point clearly to the truth of your own self. And then there's no problem. There never was a problem. You see, all problems are contrivances. They're made up by the mind. For its own sake. There's no point to any problem. There's no point in having any problem. And all problems persist because people want problems. And the minute you see that it's stupid and ridiculous to have problems, you don't have any problems. You put them down. And then whatever you have to do, you just do. What's the problem? So you have to mow the lawn. Who gives a fuck? Mow the lawn, cut the grass, prune the plants, water the plants, eat your breakfast, take a shower, do your laundry. It doesn't fucking matter. And if you physically can't do those things, then you have someone that does. Hopefully you have someone that does do them, right? Obviously. So this isn't, telling anybody not to be what they are. It's the opposite of that. I'm saying be exactly what you are. But there's no need to complain about doing the things of life. There's nothing wrong with eating and shitting and shaving and showering. There's nothing wrong with any of that. There's joy in that. If shaving hurts, I used to have to shave all the time, and the shaving hurt my face so badly. I hated doing it. I just stopped. I gave it up. And I think all the time about maybe cutting this damn beard off and just having my face again, because I have a very nice, face, and I miss seeing my face sometimes. It's a cute face, and I miss it. But I fucking hate shaving. And, if you don't, if you have the hair that grows a certain way, you have to keep it up a certain way. Otherwise, it's a mess. And I said, fuck it one day, and I just let it go. And here we are. And so, if you want to dye your hair, dye your fucking hair. You want blue, pink, purple, red, yellow, green hair, do it. The only thing is, if you don't keep it up, it fades out, which is its own look. It's totally fine. But some people, they have to have it constantly fresh all the time. Otherwise, they think they don't look good enough, because there's this impulse to have to look like a model all the time. And even the sexiest of models, gets diarrhea. And there's nothing wrong with diarrhea or being sexy with diarrhea. It's all fine. Be sexy, don't be sexy, have diarrhea, don't have diarrhea. It's all the same to me. It's all the same to God. It's all the same to consciousness. It is what it is. So when the mind is caught in this notion of I have to be perfect, that image of perfection is a static projection of memory, which is built on the basis of comparison, which is death, which is hatred, self-hatred, which is envy, which is jealousy, which is fear of not being good enough, of not being worthy of love. And so when you know yourself to be love, you just let yourself be as you are, with or without hair, with or without arms or legs, with or without the ability to get up and clean or not clean. But if you have the ability to get up and clean for God's sake. Don't let yourself live in a pile of shit because you think you're not worthy or deserving of comfort or stability or having nice air, nice space around you. You're worthy of sleeping comfortably in a nice bed. If you want to sleep on the floor, do it. But get rid of your narcissistic, self-defeating, ascetic fantasies. The hedonistic ones, too. I mean, it's all ridiculous. But right now we're talking about the ascetic desire to make yourself uncomfortable and suffer because you think you don't deserve to feel good. Or you think that artificially induced suffering is some noble path to God or consciousness or enlightenment. It's not. That's trash. The Buddha grew up in all pleasure until he was 27, 28 years old. All pleasure, because his father had his horoscope cast when he was born, and the astrologer gave a dual destiny. The astrologer said either he'll grow up to be the greatest ruler, the greatest king, the greatest emperor the world has ever known, or else the greatest sage the world has ever known. And the father, being a king, wanted him to be an emperor, not a sage. And so the father made sure that there were no images or signs of spirituality or anything like that around him. And so the Buddha was surrounded by all the finest pleasures, the finest everything, only beautiful, young, healthy people, the best food, the best clothes, everything. And then, one day, the old story, he went out for a drive with his charioteer, and he saw an old person, a sick person, and a dead body, right? And he asked about all these states of being that he saw. And he found out from his charioteer that these were inevitable things that happen to all bodies. And so he ends up then going on his journey. He left everything behind one night, you know, and he went down this path of incredible asceticism where he was not eating and not doing anything and skin and bones and woolen cloth and suffering and rough suffering. And then finally one day he was crossing a river going to the other side where he ended up finding the Bodhi tree that he sat under to get enlightened, and he realized the ridiculousness of both the false seeking of hedonistic pleasure to try to escape from death, sickness, and suffering, which you cannot do. And he also realized the ridiculousness of the forced asceticism, the induced suffering and pain and discomfort and wretchedness as an attempt to get over the hankering for pleasure or to try to find something beyond the present being. He saw it was ridiculous. And so he sat down under the Bodhi tree and he resolved to sit under that tree or die. There's a Bodhi leaf. Bodhi leaf. Bodhi leaf. Bodhi leaf. This one's a little folded in, but there's a maple leaf. I have a lot of Bodhi leaves. There's a tree at the temple that I pal around at, that I monkey around at. I assist the priest. Broop, broop, broop. And I'm in charge of the little outdoor Krishna shrine, which is really nice. It's covered and it's carpeted and there's a nice TV and a speaker system, and I like to use it to dance and sing and play, and it's very nice. Anyway, he came and sat under the tree. Broop. And sitting under the tree, he resolved that either he was going to find what he was looking for, or he was going to die. And so he sat down under the tree, resolving to stay there and not move, and either find that enlightenment or die. Well, guess what? He got enlightened. He woke up. And he woke up, and he smiled. He opened his eyes, he was smiling, and all of his ascetic monks gathered around him, and they were like, "What did you find? What did you find? What is it? What is it? You got it. We can tell. You got it. What is it? What is it? Tell us." And he just smiled and said, "Let's eat." And they were so fucked off, they were so scandalized that half of them, well, they fucked off. Because here he was, this ascetic mendicant, going against all of his vows of whatever the fuck they thought that they were supposed to be vowing. Swearing off comfort, swearing off food, swearing off pleasure, swearing off whatever. And so what he realized was his own self. He realized the eternal nature of being, which is beyond pleasure and pain, beyond hedonism and asceticism, beyond seeking, something which cannot be sought because it's not an object. And this is the discovery that there's nothing to renounce. And so first everything must be renounced, and then finally renunciation itself must be renounced. There's nothing to renounce. What could you possibly renounce other than objects created by the mind? And so rather than renouncing objects of the mind one by one, just put the whole mind down. That means pleasure, pain, seeking, chasing, running, avoiding, clinging, fearing death, and engaging in all the activities that result from your attempts to avoid death. Your neurotic need to survive. And when you neurotically need to survive, you make it a problem for everybody around you. And then you become abusive and cruel to everybody around you, including yourself. And then you justify it by saying, well, we have to because we have to survive and we have to live. Then you make it about the survival of the culture, or the survival of the race, or the survival of the religion, or the survival of the blah, 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 the tradition, the creed, the caste, the stupid nonsense, the survival of the art, the survival of the something or another. And so everybody goes on perpetuating this neurotic desire to survive, and to what end? To no end. And then everybody is forced to live in bitterness and jadedness and agony and suffering for no reason. Because you believe it's noble to suffer, or it's noble to be in pain, or it's noble to sacrifice yourself for the upholding of the cultural idols and mythologies, and that's just fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. And so finally, you have to laugh it off. You have to have a good laugh and cry, and you have to weep for the sorrow of the world. And you have to laugh at it too, but you also have to weep for it. You have to laugh and cry, and both, in both agony and ecstasy. You have to laugh in agony and laugh in joy and ecstasy. And you have to cry in agony and you have to cry in ecstasy. You have to know what that is, to laugh in agony. Most people see laughter and they go, oh, happy, joy. There's a laughter that comes from pain, from sorrow, from agony. You see? Just as there are tears that come from ecstasy, and you have to know the whole gamut. You have to know every last drop of human suffering. You have to know the entirety of the ocean of suffering. And you can know the entirety of suffering in a single instant if you're willing. And the minute you know all of suffering, suffering vanishes. It vanishes as a drop in the great ocean of ecstasy. And that great ocean of ecstasy, that nectar of immortality of God, reveals itself to be all that is, your own true self. Showing that all human suffering from the beginning to the end of time is nothing more than, it's been said, one bad night at a lousy hotel. You know, it's just it's a shitty, stupid, sad fucking dream. And it's the human beings who decide to continue dreaming that dream. And it's an option, it's a choice. We don't have to dream the dream of suffering. But we choose to. As long as we think we're going to get something from it, we dream that dream. And so people abuse others and give themselves over to be abused by others because they think they're going to get something from it. They think it's going to fulfill or satisfy something, that it'll bring them safety in the end. It doesn't. The only safety, the only security is in knowing the truth of who you are, because that is eternal. It's beyond birth and death. It's the death of death. It's the ending of all illusions. It's the realization of the truth of who and what you really are. And that is eternal. It doesn't come and go. And it doesn't even matter if you forget it, because it ultimately can't be forgotten or remembered. We talk about forgetting and remembering, but those are mental devices. Those are tools for bringing you into the ultimate, final, you can say, those are funny words, final, ultimate, but to the absolute realization of who and what you really are, which is beyond memory, beyond time, beyond space. And time and space and thought, the mind, are its play toy. Really, time, space, and thought is one thing. That's the mind, the fourth dimension, and that's all there is, physically. All other dimensions are of the mind. All dimensions are of the mind. The mind is the only physical thing there is. All physics is the mind, and the mind is all physics. And so you don't need psychology, philosophy, or theology. You just need the mind. You need to understand the physics of the mind. And who understands the physics of the mind? Consciousness. And it's not an understanding, it's a direct perception. You don't need understanding. Understanding is of the mind. It's direct awareness, because it contains its own information. The mind, physics, contains its own information. Therefore, you only have to observe it, and there it is. And when it disappears, there's nothing to keep track of. And so consciousness keeps track of nothing. It remembers nothing. It doesn't need to, because whatever is. It simply appears. And whatever appears contains all of its own information. So nothing has to be remembered. Nothing has to be known. Nothing has to be secured. That doesn't mean that you don't lock your car or tie your camel, as it's been said. But that's not what we're talking about. So yeah, close your garage door, lock your front door, whatever it is. Whatever it is, whatever it is, whatever it is. But if you do all that with a clenched heart, well, then you're suffering. You can lock your car door, and you can, put something in a safe, your diamonds or your money or whatever, without having a clenched heart. You can keep things out of the wrong hands without having a clenched heart. That's called discernment. And that discernment simply comes from the fact that you see that only an open mouth that is willing to drink can drink from the waters of eternal life. Trying to feed corpses is ridiculous. That's all. And so you don't feed the corpses. You only feed living mouths. Isn't that just obvious? But sometimes the corpses appear to go, no, give me food. But that's ignorance. That's unconsciousness. That's illusion. That's delusion. And you don't feed delusions. You don't feed illusions. You don't feed shadows. It's simple. It's a waste of time and energy and everything. And so it's simply about keeping everything in its place. And everything naturally goes to its place. You just have to let it. And so if you want to, you can walk outside totally naked. It's fine. And if you are free to do that, you're free to do that. But in many places, if you walk outside naked, you'll be arrested or worse, right? So it's very proper to put clothing on a lot of the time. And if you're in a place where you don't have to wear clothing, then God bless you. You know, go be naked. But it's the same thing. If you live in a place where there's robbers and thieves and all that, lock your door or don't lock your door. It's up to you. But if you keep your door unlocked and there's a break-in and everything gets stolen, you know, that's very unfortunate. It isn't deserved or not deserved. That's not the point. But if you live around robbers and thieves, locking the door is a pretty good way to go. Nothing wrong with that. You know, it's like people get in this idea that, you know, the 3D, as they call it, which is ridiculous, because it's the fourth dimension, which is time, space, and thought, that is hell, that is being left behind or dissolved or transcended or whatever. For the sixth dimension, which is Christ consciousness. The fifth dimension is the Akash. That doesn't come and go. It's pure information. There's no moving from 3D to 5D. It's transitioning from 4D to 6D, from hell to heaven, from ego consciousness to Christ consciousness. But, you know, there are people that get caught up in this notion of 3D bad, to the point where they give themselves lobotomies from the inside out with their silly notions of egoic manifestation, and basically hating the fact that they're experiencing themselves as a body that has to piss and shit and eat and shower and do all of that, which is ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with eating food. There's nothing wrong with drinking water or soda pop or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Even alcohol, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you're paying attention to yourself, it makes you feel like shit. And so when you're paying attention and you're clear, you don't want to do things to yourself intentionally that make you feel like shit. And you don't want to do things to others that make them feel like shit, because that makes you feel like shit. Now, if you tell the truth, and there's that narcissistic spirit, that let me just use the word egoic spirit, that wants to control, and you don't let it control what it anyway can't control, it'll get angry and say that it's hurt because you're not letting it do what it wants to you and all that kind of nonsense. You know that's nonsense. That's got nothing to do with the price of tea in Taiwan, Tibet, or Timbuktu. That's irrelevant. So the only thing to do, then, obviously, is live in the intelligence of love. And that will show you what to do. If someone is sincere, love knows. If someone is insincere, love knows. If someone is approaching in love, love clearly knows, obviously. If someone is approaching in hatred, malevolence, viciousness, control, love knows. And it wants nothing to do with that person. It can feel it. Because you can feel an open heart and you can feel a closed heart. You can feel, you know when truth is being spoken and when lies are being spoken. You know when someone is being deceptive and when they're clear and bright without motivation or guile. You know. Everybody knows. So your only task is to surrender to that completely. To your own true self, which is that, effortlessly present. And that will look like, to people on the outside, so-called, people who are still calculating and playing those games of power and control, and wanting to conquer and destroy, to them it'll look like you withdrawing from your participation in the worldly game, which they tell you you have an obligation to play, but you don't. You have no obligation to do anything. You are only obliged to love, and if you choose not to love, then you will suffer, apparently by force. because you are consciousness. And if you don't own yourself, then you will suffer yourself. It's very simple. And so the only choice you have is to suffer or to be in self-awareness. And so suffering is a lack of self-awareness. Suffering is pride, vanity, arrogance, jealousy, greed, hatred. Where there's love, there's no suffering. And so a society that runs off of reward and punishment is a society with no love. And so the only true revolution is love. You can't fix the world. You can only love. And in love, all of the hatreds and violences and abuses and exploitations, they stop. They stop. And you see that there's no reason to live like that. It's not human nature. It's human conditioning. Not the human condition. There's no such thing. There is only human conditioning, which is just conditioning, mental conditioning, which calls itself the way that humans are. No, that's conditioning. It's a virus. The true human being is free, open, complete, whole, undivided, beyond gender, race, religion, fixed sexual orientation. None of that means anything. You're a complete, free, open human being. Complete, free, and open. Radiant, brilliant, divine, dazzling, beyond division. And that's all there is. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, let's eat. Go out and play in the sunshine. If it's sunny where you are, even if it's raining, go dance in the rain. Unless you're sick and don't want to get sicker. But even then, just go in the rain for a minute. You know? Then get back in and take off your wet clothes and put on something dry and nice, get something hot to drink, and just chill. Or if it's hot, drink something cool. Just chill. Chill. Enjoy. Love yourself. Accept yourself. Dance. Pray. Sing. Laugh. Worship. Prostrate. It feels good to prostrate. Put your head on the floor. And say thank you. You'll feel 1,000,000 times better if you do. But it's so important to be in the body. It's so important to feel what the body needs and wants. All movement is a release of tension and stress. And, when you're a kid and you're not encumbered by bullshit beliefs about who you are and what you're supposed to be and supposed to do and not supposed to be and do, you're just always moving the body in all the ways that the body can possibly be moved. And that's what keeps it flexible, fresh, limber, and free of toxic and accumulations and poisons. And that's what keeps the mind free and clear. Otherwise, you sit here stiff and you only move in 5 different ways all the time. And then you get old and your body deteriorates because you don't fucking use it. But if you actually use your body, if you bend it in all the ways it can bend, and you move it in all the ways it can move, it stays fresh and limber. But you can't do that if you're afraid of looking gay. So stupid. Or you're afraid of looking like a woman. You're half woman. If you're a human body, congratulations, you're half man and half woman. That's what it means to be a human being. All human beings are half man and half woman. Hello. Where do you think you came from? All human beings are this. Hello. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Yin Yang, Ida Pingala, Shiva Shakti, Christ and Mary, Magdalene, right? Hello? All human beings are this. That's what it means to be human. And when you experience the union of that inside of you, it dissolves into one, or it reveals itself to have always been one. The apparent facade of union is actually a door that you walk through, which reveals the absolute, uncorrupted, untouched, never violated unity of your own being, which is beyond everything. It's everything at once and beyond everything. And never has it ever been divided into left and right, or male and female, or masculine and feminine. That division's never occurred inside of you. All division is an artificial, secondhand imposition of memory, of the mind, which is all violence, it's all trauma, it's all suffering, it's all false. And so only being here in the true self are you actually free. And then you see there's no such thing as man, woman, black, white, gay, straight. Those are all made-up terms that people use to distance themselves from themselves, to create division in themselves. There's no such thing as any of those things. People who insist that they are those things are dividing themselves from themselves. You are whole, complete being. You are divinity. You are God. You are God, goddess. God means God, goddess. You are God. You are divinity. You are uncorrupt, incorruptible, divisionless being. All being is. All people are. Anyone who insists that they're not is just playing the ego. And what a very good game you're playing. Unfortunately, it's stupid, ugly, and violent, and it's boring as fuck. So don't be boring as fuck. And you are boring when you pretend to be what you're not. But when you are simply what you are, you're in heaven. You're in ecstasy. You're in paradise. Always. No matter what. And then you can dress any way or not dress any way. Look any way or not look any way. It doesn't matter. Because all is perfection. You are perfection in your natural raw state. And even as you contrive an appearance to hide from the world, which is a world created by other people who are all hiding from themselves, pretending to be what they're not in order to impress other people who are also pretending to be what they're not, because they were indoctrinated into that same game by other people who were pretending to be what they're not. And when you stop doing all that shit, and you take off your own mask, which is just you let the mask fall off, in the moment of unmasking yourself, you unmask God, the devil, and the whole world, all at once. And you see everybody and everything for who and what they really are. And they can never lie to you again or deceive you again, no matter how much they insist. No, I am this thing. Yeah, no you're not. Nobody is. Nobody is what they say they are. Nobody. Nobody can be. Because you can never be what you say. Nobody can be. Nothing is what anything or anybody says it is. Nothing is words. Nothing is concepts. Nothing is categories. Nothing. Nothing. All categories are for technical division, for technological function. That's a hammer, that's a screwdriver. If you don't distinguish between them, you'll have a bad time. That's all technicality. And what's the basis of that? Desire. You want to build a house. Why do you want to build a house? Because you want comfort. You don't want to suffer. Nothing wrong with that. But when you take that and you apply it to the field of human relationship, it can only bring suffering, trauma, and violence, hatred, antagonism, jealousy, fear, which is a stupid waste of time and energy in life. So when you drop all of that, you simply sit here and you be free. And then you don't even have to have these spiritual talks and discourses and awakenings anymore. And so why does one sit here and do this? Well, it's grace. It's grace. It's for you. It's for the world. One could be easily prancing around the forest, eating berries and, taking mushrooms. But one would rather be here sitting talking to you right now. Because that's love, that's grace, that's compassion. If we don't do this for each other, then apparently we stay stuck in hell. And that's not good for anybody. So all this is an outpouring of love. It's an outpouring of grace. It's an outpouring of compassion. That's all. Alrighty, loves. We'll talk soon, okay? Mwah. Peace.